You know that advice everyone gives about buying real estate? Location, location, location? Turns out there's a corollary to that rule that nobody talks about. Some locations are so bad that no amount of square footage, no amount of affordability, no granite countertops, or stainless steel appliances can make living there worth it. I'm talking about cities where the crime statistics make you double-check if you're reading a war zone report. Cities where the school system is so bad that parents are literally fleeing with their kids. Cities where infrastructure is crumbling faster than the city can pretend to fix it. Cities where even the locals are telling you don't move here unless you absolutely have no other choice. And before you think this is just about typical dangerous cities everyone knows about, let me stop you. Some of these places are Sunbelt boom towns that look great on paper until you actually live there. Some are expensive coastal cities where you're paying premium prices for third world infrastructure. And some are Rust Belt classics that have been dying for 50 years and show no signs of stopping. So today we're going through 26 American cities that you should seriously reconsider before moving to. Not because I enjoy being negative, but because moving is expensive, life is short, and you deserve to know what you're actually getting into before you sign a lease or buy a house in a place that's going to make you miserable. Let's get into it. Here's why this matters and why I'm actually doing you a favor even though this list is going to make people mad. Every year, millions of Americans move. They chase jobs, cheaper cost of living, better weather, family, whatever. And a lot of them make decisions based on incomplete information. They see that rent is cheap and assume that's a good thing. They see sunshine and assume quality of life. They hear about economic growth and assume the city functions. But cheap rent is cheap for a reason. Sunshine doesn't fix broken infrastructure. And economic growth doesn't mean the city's not a nightmare to actually live in. The cities on this list aren't all the same. Some are legitimately dangerous with crime rates that should horrify you. Some are just deeply dysfunctional with governments that can't keep the lights on. Some are experiencing rapid decline as industries collapse and people flee. And some are just miserable places where quality of life is terrible despite looking okay on paper. And look, I'm not saying these cities don't have good people or good neighborhoods or redeeming qualities. Every city does. But if you're making a decision about where to move, you need the full picture. And the full picture for these 26 cities is pretty grim. Some of you live in these places. Some of you will defend them in the comments. That's fine, but ask yourself honestly, if you had the choice, if you had the money and the opportunity, would you stay? Or would you leave? Because that's the real test. And in these cities, a lot of people are choosing to leave. So let's go through them. And because 26 is a lot, I'm going to move quickly. If you want me to do a deep dive on any specific city, let me know in the comments. Number 26 to 20, the Sunbelt Struggles. Starting with some cities that marketed themselves as the future but are turning into cautionary tales. Bakersfield, California. Affordable by California standards, which means still expensive by human standards. The air quality is among the worst in the nation. Summer heat is legitimately dangerous. The crime rate is elevated. And it's in the middle of nowhere with limited cultural amenities. Bakersfield is what happens when you build a city in a place that shouldn't have a city. Fresno, California. Similar problems. Cheap for California. Bad air quality. High crime. Stiflingly hot. And despite being one of the largest cities in the state, it feels isolated and lacking in things to do. Fresno's biggest achievement is not being Bakersfield. Stockton, California. This city literally went bankrupt. Crime is bad. The housing crisis somehow makes it both expensive and undesirable. And you're not from anywhere you'd actually want to be. Stockton is proof that proximity to the Bay Area doesn't automatically make a city good. Modesto, California. At this point, I'm just listing Central Valley cities because they all have the same problems. Heat, crime, bad air, and the vague sense that you're living in California's armpit. Phoenix, Arizona. Controversial pick, but hear me out. Phoenix is unlivable in summer. Like, genuinely dangerous levels of heat. The city is running out of water. Infrastructure is struggling. And despite rapid growth, it's sprawling, car-dependent, and culturally empty. Phoenix is betting on a future where climate change doesn't exist. That's a bad bet. Las Vegas, Nevada. You know how people say Vegas is fun to visit, but you wouldn't want to live there? They're right. The city exists to extract money from tourists. Living there means dealing with tourist infrastructure, a transient population, extreme heat, and an economy built on gambling. Also, water problems. Vegas is a bad place to build a permanent life. Albuquerque, New Mexico. Breaking Bad filmed here for a reason. The crime rate is genuinely bad. Property crime is rampant. The schools are struggling. And while the weather and scenery are nice, that doesn't make up for the dysfunction. Albuquerque wants to be cool. It's not. Number 19 to 13. The Southern Decline. Moving to cities that have been struggling for a while and aren't getting better. Birmingham, Alabama. High crime. Racial tensions that never really healed. Economic stagnation. Crumbling infrastructure. And a general sense that the city peaked decades ago and is just slowly declining. Birmingham has good barbecue. That's not enough. Montgomery, Alabama. The state capital, which you'd think would mean something, but mostly just means government jobs in a city that otherwise has nothing going on. Crime is bad. Poverty is high. And it's hot and humid and boring. Jackson, Mississippi. The water system literally failed. Like, the capital of Mississippi couldn't provide clean drinking water to its residents. Jackson, MS. Shreveport, Louisiana. Another city in decline. The economy is weak. Crime is elevated. And there's just not much reason to be there unless you already have family or a job. Shreveport feels like it's waiting for something to revive it, and that thing isn't coming. Monroe, Louisiana. Small city. High crime. Limited opportunities. Brutal summer weather. Monroe is on this list because it's genuinely hard to think of reasons to move there voluntarily. Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Poverty, crime, economic collapse. Pine Bluff is one of the poorest cities in America, and it shows. The infrastructure is bad. Services are limited, and people are leaving as fast as they can. Little Rock, Arkansas. The biggest city in Arkansas, which isn't saying much. Crime is a major issue. The schools are problematic. And while it's affordable, you get what you pay for. Little Rock is fine if you're born there. But moving there voluntarily? That's a choice. Number 12 to 7. The Rust Belt rot. Now we're getting into classic American urban decline. Gary. Indiana. I don't even need to explain this one. Gary is legendary as a cautionary tale. It's the poster child for industrial collapse. Crime is terrible. Huge parts of the city are abandoned, and there's no realistic path to recovery. Gary is where dreams go to die. Flint, Michigan. The water crisis put Flint on the map in the worst way. The city poisoned its own residents, and while the water is supposedly fixed now, trust is gone. Add in crime, poverty, and economic collapse, and Flint is a tragedy. Moving there voluntarily would be insane. Saginaw. Michigan. Another Michigan city destroyed by industrial decline. High crime. No jobs. Crumbling. Everything. Saginaw is what happens when an entire city's economy disappears and nothing replaces it. Youngstown, Ohio. Steel town that lost its steel. The population dropped by more than half. Crime is bad. The downtown is depressing. And despite various revitalization attempts, nothing's worked. Youngstown is stuck in decline and can't get out. Dayton, Ohio. Bigger than the other Rust Belt cities on this list, but suffering from similar problems. Job losses, population decline, elevated crime, and a general vibe that the city's best days are behind it. Dayton could turn around, but betting on that is risky. Cleveland, Ohio. Controversial because Cleveland has some nice parts and the downtown has improved. But huge sections of the city are still terrible. Crime is bad, schools are bad, and the weather is miserable. Cleveland is improving, which means it used to be even worse. Number 6 to 1, the absolute worst, and now the cities that are genuinely, comprehensively bad. Number 6, East St. Louis, Illinois. East St. Louis is one of the most dangerous cities in America. The crime rate is astronomically high. The poverty rate is crushing. And the city is effectively non-functional. Services are minimal. Infrastructure is collapsing. And anyone who can leave has already left. East St. Louis is a humanitarian crisis. Number 5. Camden, New Jersey. Camden's reputation as one of the most dangerous cities in America is well earned. The poverty rate is extreme. The schools are among the worst in the nation. And despite being across the river from Philadelphia, it hasn't benefited. Camden is where the American dream went to get mugged. Number 4. Detroit, Michigan. I know, Detroit is coming back. The downtown has investment. There are trendy neighborhoods. Tech companies are moving in. Cool. 90% of the city is still a disaster. Huge areas are abandoned. Crime is still terrible outside the gentrified zones. The schools are catastrophically bad, and the city government is barely functional. Detroit's comeback is real in about 10 square blocks. The other 130 square miles? Still Detroit. Number 3. St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis has the highest murder rate in America, depending on how you measure it. The crime is genuinely shocking. The city is divided and declining. Huge neighborhoods are abandoned. And while there are nice areas, you're constantly aware that you're in one of the most dangerous cities in the country. St. Louis has good food and a cool arch. That's not worth getting shot over. Number 2. Baltimore, Maryland. Baltimore is expensive, which makes its problems even worse. You're paying mid-tier city prices to live in a place with third-world murder rates. The Wire wasn't exaggerating. The opioid crisis devastated the city. The schools are a disaster. Infrastructure is crumbling. And despite being close to D.C., Baltimore hasn't benefited. It's just gotten worse. Baltimore is what happens when a city can't escape its own dysfunction. Number 1. Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis has everything wrong with it. The crime rate is horrific, violent crime especially. The schools are among the worst in the nation. Infrastructure is bad. The city government is dysfunctional. Poverty is endemic. And despite being a major city with a rich cultural history, it's collapsing. Memphis has great music history. It has good food. And that's about it. Everything else is a nightmare. The city is losing population. Businesses are leaving. And residents who can afford to move are getting out. Moving to Memphis voluntarily in 2025 would be one of the worst life decisions. Unless you have family there or a job you can't refuse, stay away. Memphis wins by being comprehensively terrible in every category that matters. So what does all this actually mean? First, American urban decline is real and it's not being fixed. These cities have been struggling for decades. Some have gotten worse. Very few have genuinely improved. The problems are structural, and there's no political will or money to solve them. Second, cheap cost of living is meaningless if you're unsafe, unemployed, or stuck in a non-functional city. Moving somewhere because rent is for $100 a month is stupid if you can't get a job. Your kids go to terrible schools, and you're afraid to leave your house at night. Third, these lists always make people mad. People who live in these cities will defend them. And look, if you're from Memphis or Detroit or Baltimore, I get it. It's your home. You know the good parts. You have community there. But be honest with yourself. If you could move anywhere, would you stay? Most people's answer is no. Fourth, this is ultimately about resource allocation and policy failure. These cities didn't fail by accident. Decades of bad decisions, white flight, deindustrialization, and governmental dysfunction created these problems, and nobody's figured out how to fix them. And fifth, voting with your feet is the most powerful thing individuals can do. Cities that are terrible will keep losing population until they either collapse completely or get desperate enough to change. The people staying are often the ones who can't afford to leave. So there you have it. 26 cities we're moving there. Would be a mistake unless you have very specific reasons to go. Are all of these cities completely without merit? No. They all have good people, good neighborhoods, cultural value, history. But if you're making a free choice about where to live, considering quality of life, safety, opportunity, schools, and basic functionality, these cities are not it. Some of them might improve. Cleveland and Detroit are trending better. Others, like Memphis and East St. Louis, are getting worse. But right now, today, in 2025, these are cities to avoid unless you have compelling personal reasons to be there. And before people get mad and say I'm being unfair or I don't understand these cities, ask yourself this. If someone you loved, your kid or your sibling or your best friend, told you they were moving to one of these places, would you be happy for them? Or would you try to talk them out of it? Your gut reaction answers the question. So let me know in the comments, do you live in one of these cities? Am I wrong? Am I right? Have I missed cities that belong on this list? Which city do you think is actually the worst? And if you found this useful, or at least entertaining, consider subscribing. We do real estate, cities, and economic dysfunction on this channel. Someone has to be honest about where you shouldn't move. Might as well be me.